everyone, and welcome back to the 2022 Chess Olympiad. It is round 6, and it is the clash you guys have been waiting for. On board one, we have India, or rather India's second team, Gukesh, versus the first board of Armenia, Gabriel Sargissian, who is an incredibly strong player. He already won the Olympiad, the gold medal in the Olympiad 3 times, fighting for Armenia in 2006, in 2008, and 2012. And he is most definitely an incredibly difficult opponent for Gukesh, and I'm not gonna spoil anything regarding the game. I will, however, say that it is extremely interesting and that it really shows you how to prepare for a chess game. So let's check it out and see what happened here. Gukesh has the white pieces and he opens with d4. We have d5, c4, going for the queen's gambit. We have e6, declining the gambit, knight f3, knight f6, and now knight to c3, and of course bishop to b4. Again, we have the Ragozin defense. And bishop to g5 and c captures on d5 are the standard replies here, but Gukesh goes for queen to a4 with check. It's not extremely rare or anything, it's just that the other moves are, a bit more common. So knight to c6, blocking check and defending the bishop on b4, and pawn to e3. We have castles by Gabriel, and the bishop to d2. D captures on c4, we have bishop captures on c4, and now bishop back to d6. Again, this is all very standard, preparing e5 as the white king is still in the center of the board. So queen back to c2, and now pawn to e5. We have d captures on e5, knight captures on e5, and this is where things get extremely interesting, and why I said that the game really shows you how to prepare for a chess game against a very strong opponent. There is only one move that absolutely everyone plays here, and that is knight captures on e5. This is the only move you play here, because if you allow the engine to crunch the numbers in this position, the engine will tell you only 2 moves are playable for white. One is bishop back to e2, as your bishop is also hanging on c4, so you want to play bishop to e2, or the other one is knight captures on e5, and the engine slightly prefers knight captures on e5, and that's why everyone in this position plays knight captures on e5. But it's a very forced line, and you don't really enjoy playing it with white. I will show you very quickly. If you play what the engine suggests, knight captures, bishop captures f4, sort of fighting for advantage, but black will not allow you to just safely castle. Black will give up the bishop, bishop captures, and go knight to g4, now threaten to pick up the e3 pawn, and after bishop to d4, now black is the one who will start the attack. Pawn to c5, sacrificing a pawn, bishop captures, rook e8, and already it is black who's attacking here. Now this has all been thoroughly analyzed, and no one will actually win this. I mean, most of the games do end in a draw from this position, but it's definitely not a way to look for chances with white. So here Gukesh, instead of going for knight captures on e5, like I said, the move that absolutely everyone plays in this position, just goes back bishop to e2, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. So how do you continue playing here? And it's very interesting that already with this retreat, he completely confused the Sargissian. As it would seem, people never really checked the discontinuation, because no one ever played it, and it makes no sense to play it. So here the engine will tell you you can play c6, you can play queen e7, bishop d7, rook to e8. Those are moves that you would come up with yourself. You just have to continue development. However, here Sargissian says, all right, let's see what you have planned out. Knight captures on f3, and here he gives Gukesh a dare. Does he just want to capture with the bishop, or does he want to play g captures on f3, completely imbalance the position, and grab the semi-open g file to be used to attack the black king? And as you might have suspected, this is exactly what Gukesh does. G captures on f3, and now we already have an extremely interesting game. So here, of course, Sargissian realizes that Gukesh will not be castling kingside. He will, however, be castling queenside, so he prepares his expansion. He plays a6, now b5, b4 is coming. Gukesh quickly castles queenside and pawn to b5. Now we have rook h to g1 and pawn to b4, chasing away the knight. We have knight to e4, knight captures, f captures, and now queen to e7, developing the queen, preparing to develop the bishop, connect the rooks, and so on. So here, pawn to f4, you can see that Gukesh now has massive control over these squares on the 5th rank. Here he has the semi-open g-file for his rook. He's going to double up rooks on the g-file most likely, and he will of course try to attack the black king, and Sargissian will try to attack the white king on the queen side. So pawn to a5, and now pawn to e5, attacking the bishop, bishop to c5, and now getting the rook off of the g1 square, he goes rook to g5, preparing to double up on the g-file. Also, maybe interesting is because if you double up on the g-file, he will play g6 at some point. So maybe bishop to d3 is a very nice way to actually ask black, how are you defending here? Are you playing h6? Are you playing g6? Because the immediate g6 might just be giving a target to white. Also, it's maybe a nice move to throw in. But Gukesh has a different plan. He goes rook to g5. He says this is not necessary. Bishop to a6, immediately tackling this bishop, not allowing bishop to d3. Rook d to g1, and now g6, stopping of course rook captures on g7. And here we have bishop captures on a6, rook captures on a6, and pawn to f5. And this is where the game completely explodes, and where I will show you guys why chess is the greatest game that was ever invented and probably ever will be. Here black has to play something, and it's definitely not pleasant. Look at these pawns controlling all of these squares. I mean, that's not something you want to face. Obviously, this pawn is free for grabs, but if you capture this pawn, then f captures on g6 opens up a discovery on your queen. Also, your position is just crumbling here. So you're not going to do that. However, there is one move for black, and I could ask you to pause the video, but it's such a disgusting engine line, you guys will feel like I'm tricking you. So, like, if you really want to, you can pause the video here and try to find the only good move for black, but, better don't do it. You're gonna go mad. So here, the only good move for black is rook to c6. It looks pointless, as the rook is not even defended on c6, but now that you see it, of course, the queen and king on the c file, there might be something here. And if the queen comes to e8, for example, then there will be all sorts of nasty discoveries to be made with this bishop. So here, the game might continue king to b1, queen to e8, now again, threatening some nasty discoveries. Now the rook is defended, queen to e4, we're gonna get our queen out of the way, and now queen to d7, attacking the bishop here, but now pawn to e6, and you can never afford to capture here, because then white just starts capturing, and black is destroyed. So here we would see f captures on e6, f captures on g6, now pawn to h6, we have to keep the g file closed, rook to h5, and now queen captures on d2, so black would win a bishop here, g7, attacking the rook here, and it seems like black just resigns here. However, there is the possibility of rook to f1 with check. Very, very important, as it leaves the g7 pawn undefended after white captures here. Rook captures on f1, now bishop captures on f3, on e3, threatening to sacrifice the queen, queen c1 check, and then rook to c1 checkmate. So you have to play something. The problem is, there is really no good move to make here except one. If you capture the rook, which is kind of what you can do, then queen d3 check, and you just get checkmated. Queen to c2, we're going to capture here, and after queen c1, this will be checkmate. So that's out of the question. You can't capture this rook. What you can do is play rook to c5. White counters with a brilliancy, much like black did when playing rook to f1. Rook to c5, and now you can't capture with the rook because queen captures on e6 and black gets checkmated. You cannot capture with the bishop, also queen to f3, and now you no longer have control over the c file, now just queen to f7, and it's game over. So this cannot be defended. What you can do is play bishop to d4. This is kind of the only way that you can continue fighting for something. But now comes queen to c2. You threaten to capture the queen and to capture the rook on c6, and here black is forced to trade. Queen captures, rook captures, now let's say rook captures, king captures, and after king captures on g7, you would get this endgame where it's a rook and 3 pawns against a bishop and 5 pawns. Maybe you can win this, maybe not. It's hard to say. With perfect play, probably it's winning, but it's very, very hard to actually pull this off. So this is what might happen if you actually play the best move, rook to c6, which again If any of you found them, I mean, truly congratulations, you are beyond brilliant. But here bishop to a7 was played, and now there is a way to, just start winning this with white. And here we have pawn to e6 right away. King to b1, the engine really prefers this, as you do not want your king and queen on the c file, but it seems that Gukesh manages to trick Sargissian into overly defending, and he plays king to h8 here. To actually survive this, you just have to play f captures on e6, and after g6, h6. Now attack the rook, g7, h captures on g5, captures here with queening, king captures, and now you have this position where the black king is exposed, but so is the white king, and with, some decent play, you should not be able to win this. However, after e6, king to h8 was played, getting the king off of the g file, but now Gukesh plays king to b1, and now the attack starts. Now again, it's incredibly important to do this, because if you just start capturing, e captures on f7, now there's the problem of the e3 pawn. Bishop captures on e3, and after f captures on g6, you can just capture here with check, and this is now a problem. Queen captures, h captures on g6, rook captures, for example, rook captures, now you think you are checkmating the black king, but just rook captures on f7, and that's it. If queen h6 check, you can defend, and this is now a dead draw. So Gukesh plays it correctly. He plays king to b1. You have to play this move, and now comes g captures on f5, giving Gukesh the open g file, and basically saying there is only one way that will allow you to win the game cleanly, but it's not an easy one to spot. So feel free to pause the video and win the game for Gukesh while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on yet again realizing that it has something to do with the b4 square. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop captures on b4. We can do it also in slow motion if you guys want. The point is we have to move the obstacle that is preventing our queen from reaching g2, but we also want to do it with tempo. So the tempo is attacking the queen. If black just ignores this, moves the queen, then we can even capture the rook. So queen captures on b4, doesn't really matter what you play here, the game is now completely winning for white. And now queen to g2, threatening rook to g8. Of course, rook captures and queen captures will be checkmate. So here, queen to e4 with check. Sargissian manages to trade off the queens, but it doesn't matter, as the game is still tactically completely winning for Gukesh. Queen captures, f captures, and now the only winning move, but not a difficult one to spot, pawn to e7. And that's it. Here the rook is attacked, you have to move the rook. Rook to e8 was played, but now just rook to g8 with check, rook captures, king captures, and e8, the pawn again becomes a queen, and now you have a queen against the bishop and rook. But the bishop and rook are so awkwardly placed that it's very unlikely that black will be able to organize his forces to, prevent some sort of a quick check and, just picking up the rook or the bishop. So here, of course, the game continues. King g7, queen to e5 check, we have rook to f6, and now not going for rook captures on a5 right away, but first a nice classy move, queen to g5 with check. Now this is very forcing, you can't go away because you lose the rook, so you have to play rook to g6, and now you play queen captures on a5. By doing this little maneuver, you are now preventing bishop captures on e3, because now if bishop captures, queen c3 check picks up the bishop. So it wasn't just to give a check. Gukesh planned this out very nicely, so he could grab the a5 pawn without worrying about his e3 pawn, because if the e3 pawn isn't here, then this pawn becomes dangerous. So here, rook to g1 with check, king c2, rook to g2 with check, king to b3, and now bishop to b6, as the bishop was hanging here. So queen to e5 with check, king to f8, now queen to h8 check, king to e7, and queen captures on h7, giving Sargissian the move, but there really aren't all that many moves. He goes for rook to e2. His only chance is to pick up this pawn and create a passed e pawn, but now now a few checks, and this rook will not survive for very long. Queen captures on e4 with check, king to f8, and queen to b4 check, and he was in this position on move 41 upon reaching time control that Gabriel Sargissian resigned the game. game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Gukesh wins yet another game. This is his 6th win in a row. So currently Gukesh in the Chess Olympiad is 6 out of 6, which is absolutely incredible. And here he resigned because if, of course, king e8, then queen b5 check picks up the rook, and if you go to the g file anywhere, doesn't really matter where, you can play king g7, then queen to g4 check, again picks up the rook this way. So of course now that would be pointless. The only thing you can do to save the rook is play c5, which forces you to capture the bishop, but you are very happy with the bishop. I mean, queen versus rook here is completely winning, so whatever you get to take, rook or bishop, it will be perfectly fine. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Some of you said that that I am mistaking about Gukesh's rating here, as I'm saying it's 2684, but I always imagine that people know this. There is this thing called the live ratings, and there is this thing called the current actual ratings, which is updated like once a month or maybe once in 2 months. I know it was updated once every 2 months now, maybe it's like once a month. I'm pretty sure it's once a month now. But he's over 2700 in the live rating. So if you guys are interested in what's his current rating now, it is exactly 2719.3. so he is currently since the last rating list, he's up 20.3 points, which is incredible. He's currently 26th in the world, and he overtook Vidit. We already said that in the previous video, but now he also overtook Sam Shankland, getting that 26th spot in the world. Next is Wei Yi, Nikita Vityugov, Topalov, Kwang Liem, Andreikin, Hari Krishna Vankha, and so on. It's a long way to the top, but I mean, Gukesh is 6 out of 6. If he continues this, I mean, that's it's absolutely incredible that he can play like this. And it all came down to his incredible tactical style and absolutely elegant preparation. It's like what you would expect from maybe Fabiano Caruana some 10 years ago. Just knight captures on e5, and then not going for what everyone plays, just bishop back to e2, the move no one plays because the engine said so. So be careful when playing something just because the engine said so. So once again, really hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna cover some other games from round 6 as games are getting more and more